All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of the 5 Warrior Angels series published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm coming at you from Hollywood, California.
Hollywood.
We are celebrating the 39th volume of the Writers of the Future anthology, and I've got with me today Kevin J. Anderson, author of over 100 novels and short stories. He's written every book in the universe.
Well, the good one. The good ones.
And Galaxy Far, Far Away, which he's done novels in the Star Wars universe, the Dune universe, and one of my favorite space opera series of all time, Saga of the Seven Suns. Thanks for joining me, Kevin.
Brian. Glad to be on TV with you. We've been together at a lot of conventions, so let's do this and entertain your audience as much as we can.
Yes. So let's just start with Writers of the Future. That's why we're here, celebrating the 39th volume. Just tell me a little bit about, well, tell the audience a little bit about what Writers of the Future is, how long you've been involved with it.
Too long. Not that that's a bad thing, but I just found out this morning because every year I give this lecture on professionalism to the winners. Right now this week in Hollywood, there's a lengthy and in-depth workshop for the illustrators and for the writers. And it's been 30 years that I've been an instructor here, coming in and helping out. And when the contest started, I guess it's 39 years ago, if we're at volume 39, I was a new writer and I entered into it. And what was really cool about it is that it's a level playing field. And when I was a new writer, I'm trying to compete against, Stephen King and Dean Koontz and all these other big writers. But in the Writers of the Future contest, it's only new writers. So you're not competing against these giant Goliaths of the industry. You're competing against, and it's blind that your names are taken off of them. So you're just judged on the quality of your work. And I've been a judge for 27 years or something like that. And I just love the contest. There's big prizes. There's this great workshop. There's this great award ceremony, and you get published in this really cool anthology. I'm going to yank it out because right now, this year, this beautiful, gorgeous cover, and I'm sure you're showing it off.
It's right behind us.
It's that one, right behind us. So this year, working with artist Tom Wood, he did the cover painting, and I used that to inspire me to write the cover story. So that big fire dragon over a Asian style pagoda there, that features prominently in my story. But the thing was, I got this really fun series called Dan Shamble's Zombie PI. It's kind of like Ace Ventura meets the Addams Family, and it's like a private detective who's a zombie who solves crimes with mummies and ghosts and whatever. And I had made up my mind ahead of time I wanted to do a Dan Shamble story for this book. And then I see that painting, a fire dragon over an Asian pagoda. Well, I came up with something, and it turns out to be a really fun and really great story in the book. And it's a place for us judges to showcase our talents and for the new writers to learn a bunch and network and make connections. And I believe you won once or twice, didn't you?
I was in volume number 9 back when I was in college, and that was a long time ago. We're at volume 39 now. So let me ask you: not only have you been a judge for the contest for a long time, you've always got stories and writing advice in the anthologies themselves. How many careers of famous writers that we know now do you think Writers of the Future has launched?
Oh man, I mean, since I've been teaching or just being in the cohort of runners-up and honorable mentions and stuff, so many of us came up as either winners or following this contest, and there are dozens of Nebula Award winners, Hugo Award winners, New York Times bestsellers. One of our artist winners won an Academy Award for his film work, and there are New York Times bestsellers and all kinds of people who've come out of it. So I think it's some pretty good advice. I mean, I've been to certain writers' workshops where it's kind of, esoteric, and they don't really give you practical stuff. And this is real nuts and bolts, how to write a really good story, how to write fast, how to market your stuff, how to be a professional, and that's kind of what we want to teach.
So before we get to talking about some of your Star Wars adventures and Dune adventures, how about you talk a little bit about your newest project?
Cool. Well, I have a lot of things going on, and this sometimes I just want to be really silly. I don't know if you can see this or not, but
I'll hold it right up there for him.
All right.
And maybe I'll download a file and we'll just put it right over your face.
Well, anyway, that's the Dragon Business. It's a book that I wrote a while ago that I just love it. It's the Princess Bride meets Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. It's a gang of medieval con men who sell their services as dragon slayers, but there's no dragon. It's all fake. They just do big footprints around and they burn some buildings down, and then they go and take a bag of gold to kill the dragon, and then they run off to the next kingdom. Until, of course, there really is a dragon, and then it twists everything around. But the thing for this is I've started doing a couple of big, ambitious Kickstarter campaigns.
Okay.
And this book was out for a long time, and I loved it, and I always wanted to do a sequel to it. But I couldn't sell it to a publisher because they didn't have the rights to the first book. And so I just thought, well, I'm going to run a Kickstarter. So we got brand new cover art done. There's a brand new issue of the Dragon Business, and I wrote a sequel to it, which was all funded by the Kickstarter people. And the sequel is now at the printer. That's why I don't have a copy here. But it was made possible because the fans supported it. They put their money where their mouth was, and they wanted to get copies of the books ahead of everybody else. And so anyway, the Dragon Business is my medieval comedy, and we've now got the writer for the movie Frozen just loves it, and
cool.
He's doing a big pitch and developing, and just had lunch with my manager trying to get that done. So who knows? And
well,
as we're talking right now, there's this looming writer's strike in Hollywood. So who knows how that's going to happen?
Well, speaking of Hollywood, you have written in some pretty big Hollywood franchise type things. Let's start with Star Wars. That's probably one of your first. How was that experience for you? And
I had published half dozen or so of my own original books, and then somebody at Lucasfilm and at Bantam Books, they thought, hey, Kevin might write Star Wars books, and they asked me, and I loved it. I mean, I was a Star Wars fan, so I kind of went whole hog into that. Total, I think, was 54 different projects for Lucasfilm.
Oh, wow.
Novels and comics and kids books and young adult books and anthologies. And I love that because I'm a fanboy, and you mean I get to write Luke Skywalker stories and Han Solo stories. So that was great, and that were my first bestsellers, and I built a big fandom out of that. And from that, we kind of branched out. I did some X-Files books. I did a bunch of movie novelizations. I did comics and Batman and Superman. And it was after that I got connected with Frank Herbert's son, Brian. And we wanted to pick up in the Dune universe and finish the work that his father had left uncompleted when he passed away.
Yeah, I've read the House Atreides and the House Carino. I don't know if I'm pronouncing any of that right, but
you're doing just fine.
Okay. But I love
pronounced house.
I love them. Now, one of my favorite space opera series of all time is Saga of the Seven Sons, and that's what is that, about 9 books or 10 books?
Well, it's 7 books in the original one, and then I did a prequel, and I did a connecting one, and then I did a sequel trilogy, and each one is like bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like Game of Thrones with planets and all kinds of galactic cosmic threats that are going to destroy the fabric of the universe, and I don't know where I go from there. It's kind of hard to get even bigger than the fate of the universe, but that's sort of my love letter to science fiction. It's got alien races and space battles and sentient trees and killer robots and old alien derelict relics and abandoned cities, and it's just everything that I love about science fiction I put into that. And it's got like 10 different storylines and characters all over the place, and one of them was even nominated for the Hugo Award. So it built up, and I finished that series. But you know, it's a big universe. How do you finish Star Trek? I mean, there's always something else you could explore. So it's in my spare time, it's in the back of my mind.
No, it's epic. I've read it. It's seriously dope. I mean, I love everything about it.
Yeah.
So not only are you involved with Writers of the Future, but you also do another convention called Superstars of Writing.
Yes.
Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I mentioned about here at the Writers of the Future workshop that we really do pragmatic and business-oriented stuff. And it was 14 years ago that it was me and my wife Rebecca, David Farland, Eric Flint, Brandon Sanderson. We sort of all got together and thought somebody should teach other writers just the business and the contracts and copyrights and career building and everything. So that's when we just founded Superstars back then. And like I said, we're about to do our 14th year, and it truly is most writers' conferences are all craft oriented, how to build characters and how to write dialogue and stuff. Ours are how to market your work and how to read your contracts and how to understand copyright law and how to understand indie publishing, which is completely different from 14 years ago. It was just starting out. And in fact, I think Eric Flint gave our first talk about, these ebook things might be something to pay attention to. And we've been evolving and growing ever since. And we're in Colorado Springs every February. So
yeah, I went to one of your Superstars of Writing conferences. I think it was in 2016. Probably the best writing conference that I bet it's the best writing conference in the world. Just to be
I think
honest
so,
with you.
but we've got to the point where we're capping our attendance now at 400 people because if it gets too big, then you don't get the hands-on. I was going to say hands-on, intimate experience, but that doesn't sound right at all, does it?
I think we get what you're trying to say.
So I mean, it's really a tight network, and you learn a whole lot of stuff going there, and it's real practical stuff, and you make connections and networking, and I just every year when it's over, because I'm one of the guys running it. Every year when it's over, I just sort of feel like, yep, that's like my tombstone stuff. That's what. Yeah, and he created Superstars Writing Center because it's so satisfying to do that.
Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview with me.
Well, thanks, Brian.
Thank you
Good to
so
see you
much.
again.
Yeah.